Hello everyone and welcome to the final video of the 2025 AFLW season as I look through the player movements Port made in this off-season and give a little preview of what I think our best 21 will be going into next year. But without further ado, we begin the player movements with the delisting and retirement. So, starting off, Port Adelaide delisted 3 players this year in the form of Kobe Morgan, Alicia Brooke, and Jasmine Stewart. Morgan was an injury add-on player who came in when it looked like we might have to dig very deep into our list this year. Thankfully, we didn't actually have to dig that deep, and unfortunately, as a result, Morgan wasn't able to play. So her delisting was kind of expected, and perhaps she could return next year if we are looking like we might have another injury crisis. Fingers crossed, let's hope not. On the other hand, we also have Alicia Brooke, who was another player who struggled to get into the side this year. I think she was definitely being outmuscled by the likes of Brooksby and Jermack and some of the other young defenders. So it's unfortunate that she also won't be able to stay on. But finally, arguably the most controversial of the delistings, at least in mine and a lot of other people's opinion, was Jasmine Stewart. Watchers of this channel would know I had a lot of praise for her, especially in those last 3 games of the year that she played with us, especially that showdown game where she was incredible. I don't exactly know why we delisted her, partly because, I've been very keen for us to keep that mature age talent in the team, as I still think our young'uns aren't quite there yet. But I just hope that if we're delisting someone like Jasmine Stewart, a player of her calibre, that means we think the rest of the team's even better. So you're setting our standards very high, Port. I'm expecting a lot of good things next year if you're delisting a player like that. But regardless, we also need to talk about the retirement of former captain Janelle Cuthbertson, and it's just really sad to see how her career ended. Obviously, got the ACL in round 2 last year, and we were all hoping she'd, be able to come back into the team this year and, get to play out what I think she already admitted was going to be a final year, and then she got another ACL, so she never really got that nice send-off game, and it's just a really sad ending. But, I hope she's able to find, some more sporting opportunities in retirement and stuff. But, we once again, thank you for your service to the team. Okay, now we've done with the delistings and retirements, let's look to the trades. So obviously, as we went into this trade period, it didn't look like there was going to be much happening. I think there was some interest in possibly moving our pick up the list. We had picked 10, but we actually didn't end up doing that because we got informed that Ellie Hampson from the Brisbane Lions decided that she wanted to come join Port Adelaide, and we were able to facilitate that by trading away our 2nd and 3rd round picks, thankfully not our 1st round pick, as well as a future 3rd to land the Brisbane forward, who, might I say, she's a 3-time grand final player, so she's clearly someone who's considered in the Lions' best 21, because, reminder, they didn't really have any injuries going into the grand final this year, so yeah, definitely a very talented player. So I'm obviously very excited to see her come into the team. I think she will pretty much go straight into the forward line or potentially midfield. So we'll be definitely really excited. I'll talk a bit more about that later in the video though. But because we need to talk about the second trade, which was with West Coast, and it was literally in the dying minutes of the trade period. I was watching the last hour of the trade on the radio, and I was like, oh yeah, Port Adelaide's just done a trade. So so we are giving up our round 1 pick from last year in Lily Patterson, sending her back to our home state of Western Australia in return for South Australian Lucy Boyd. Along with the picks, some of the picks we gave up in the Hampton trade. We obviously got West Coast's pick 2, which was ended up being about pick 30, and as well as a future round 3. So we've sort of got the round 3 pick for next year as well. Look, while Patterson showed some potential, I think especially in the North Melbourne and St Kilda game, she definitely underwhelmed for someone recruited at pick 19. So in some respects, I am not entirely worried that we're trading her out. I actually suspected we might have actually delisted her if she'd stayed on in the team until the end of this year. So I think getting some picks back for her was definitely good, and also getting a South Australian key defender. Obviously, I've complained a lot this year about our defence, so getting another key defender is, I think, a good sign. Obviously, a pretty low-end pick. She was like pick 59 in last year's draft, Lucy Boyd. So we don't know how well she'll do. If she does a good train on this season, she might potentially be entering into our best 21, but we'll talk again about that later. So yeah, I think we did pretty solid in the trade. The main thing is we got in a grand finalist player, or premiership player, I guess, if you consider the Lions won the 2023 grand final, and all we really lost was 2 picks in the draft. We went from pick 28 to pick 30, which I think is an absolute win. But I guess talking about the picks, let's talk about the draft. So obviously the draft just happened yesterday, and our pick 10 ended up turning into a pick 17 because of all the Gold Coast Academy bids, which just makes the draft look so silly about how easy it is to just steal. But getting away from my issues with drafting rules, we picked up with pick 17 midfielder Sophie Eaton from the Central District's Bulldogs. From what I've heard, she's arguably the best all-round talent from South Australia. She's apparently really good in her disposal efficiency, which, again, something we struggled with this year. It has the potential making of being another midfield superstar along the lines of your Abby Dowricks, which has definitely got me excited, because I think, as I mentioned before, we kind of don't have that ball magnet that, your Georgie Prasparkas and Ella Roberts are in other teams. So fingers crossed that Sophie Eden could turn into that kind of player. But yeah, really exciting to have her join the team. As for our second pick, which was pick 30 and thankfully stayed pick 30, we got key defender Olivia Crane from the Subiaco Lions. Now, I was a bit surprised with this choice because a player I had saw that was quite interested in was Taylor McMillan, a solid contested ball winner in the midfield, and surprisingly, she was still available at pick 30, but obviously maybe we thought we had too many midfielders and needed a key defender, obviously thinking maybe Lucy Boyd wasn't quite enough. And so, yeah, we've picked up Olivia Crane. Apparently a bit of a slow-moving player, but a player who's got very good footy smarts. And then they've talked about that slow-down effect that some players have where they can sort of play the game slower and get away with it. Apparently also the best intercept marker of all the defenders in the, was it the Combine, I believe, or something? So that's really exciting. So, yeah, looks like we might have a bit of a squeeze going on in the defence, which we'll be talking about now, because it's time to talk about who do I think will be in the best 21. So, obviously, I don't know how the training season's going. Like, last year, who could have seen Jasmine Sowden, jumping ahead of all her draft picks to be selected in round 1. So, again, this is a very early assessment of the team, and it's most likely not going to be accurate in the slightest. So please don't get angry if one of your favourite players isn't in my list. But let's get started with who I think will be in our full forwards. And so for the full forwards, I think it's a pretty easy choice between Gemma Houghton and Indy Tahau as the 2 deepest players. With both being the 2 leading goal kickers of last year, this was a very easy choice. Obviously, other potential forwards could be Tika or Young, but outside of injury, I think Houghton and Tahoe are going to be easy here. Not so easy to select half forwards. As it currently stands, I have last year's, I think she was the 2nd leading goal kicker in Caitlin Wedland. I think she's a pretty solid choice to be there. I think I would captain Justine Mules-Robinson there. Obviously, she's not a huge goal kicker, but you definitely want to keep your captain on the field or not in a position that she's not familiar with. So definitely, I think, keep her there so she can do her role as captain. And finally, I think I've just put in newcomer, put Ellie Hampson here, just because, obviously, she looks like she's a really talented inside 50 player based on seeing some of the games she played in the Lions this year. So I think it's obvious to put her there, although she possibly could move into the midfield. Some other small forwards that didn't quite make the list were players like Pope, Lamb and Sowden. But obviously, a bit of a difficult choice trying to decide who goes in the forwards. All right, now we have the wingers. And for the wingers, I have Maria Maloney. And I decided to put in newcomer Sophie Eaton here. Perhaps I'm being a bit too optimistic about how well she'll do in the off-season, but she does come across to me as someone who will have impact in round 1 next year. Some other players that potentially could go here are Goody, Bogue, and Heads, but I have ideas for them elsewhere. One of those being halfback. So in the halfbacks, I have Sachi Syme, Molly Brooksby, and Ella Heads. As the three best performing mid defenders, I think this line should be set to bounce back in 2026 after struggling a bit this year. I'm not the most confident here about exactly who are our best defenders, because I know he's really been pushing like Heads up higher, and obviously I think, O'Day has been a pretty solid half defender, and I also know people like Hammond for, once again, some more mature heads in the area. But regardless, let's talk about the fullbacks. And for the fullbacks, I currently have Tegan Jermack and Emily Borg. Obviously, Emily Borg being a vice captain is an obvious choice here, and Jermack's always been a pretty solid marking target. But I do think Jermack is a little bit at risk depending on how Olivia Crane and Lucy Boyd go in the off-season, so I definitely think there's a bit of a squeeze here. All right, and the last of the on-field players, we have the followers, and I think this is a pretty easy choice. I have Sinead Goody, Abby Dowrick, and Ash Woodland, sort of our three best midfielders as the followers. And then, the easiest choice in the world, Matilda Schultz for the ruck. A few other players that could potentially be here would be someone like Maria Maloney, Piper Window, and Ella Heads, who unfortunately didn't quite get in. And finally, we need to talk about the interchange bench. And this is sort of where I've thought of a bit of the utility players that I feel like can go kind of anywhere on the field and help out where we're struggling. And for those, I have Julia Teakle, Lauren Young, Ebony O'Day, Caitlin Pope, and Piper Window. I have Julia Teakle and Lauren Young, as I kind of wouldn't mind seeing them be sort of both full forwards and full backs sort of players. I'm also potentially interested in seeing Julia Teakle do more of the ruck work, so because I don't think because we obviously don't have a second ruck in this layout. And along with them, I think Pope and Window are kind of good as both half forwards and midfielders, and I think Window's also done a bit of defence as well. And finally, I had Ebony O'Day because she's been a pretty solid defender, and I think we need obviously some more defenders to help prevent those goal leakages that we were seeing last year. Now, outside of the top 21, I also decided to make a little bit of an emergencies list, and in that I have Ella Bogue, Cheyenne Hammond, Kirsty Lamb, Jasmine Sowden, and Chloe Gaunt. Bogue is one I'm a bit on the fence about because obviously she won the Players Player Award this year. I haven't looked it up, sorry. And obviously a solid midfielder. Obviously it's a bit of a tight squeeze in the midfield at the moment. Possibly could put her in for O'Day, depending on how we're feeling. But don't feel like I think anything against Ella Bogue. Still a good player. Cheyenne Hammond, of the defenders, I've probably been the least impressed with her out of all the players playing regularly. Kirsty Lamb, unfortunately, is really struggling. She obviously didn't get to play a huge amount this year, and unfortunately her small forward position is just being eaten up by a heavy douse of talent from your likes of Ellie Hampton, Caitlin Wedland, and Mills Robinson. Sowden is another one. Obviously, being a first-year player, she could be moving up, showing some real talent in a second year, which could end up muscling her out, which is one of these reasons why you can't take this list super seriously. And finally, one of the more interesting players, Chloe Gaunt. Obviously, we got her in to sort of fill in that Oliver Levicki second ruck role. But just like a bit of athleticism, I know she was quite slow out in the field, so she's able to work on her athleticism and moving around faster. Definitely, I think could easily make the interchange bench as Matilda Schultz's cover. But regardless, that is how I see the team probably looking for round one next year, pending no injuries. And with that, we are done with the videos for 2025. I wish you guys all a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year as I put this channel to sleep until next season starts to warm up. So enjoy the time off, and remember, let's go Power!